I'm Jonathan Blackman with the North Central Texas Council of Governments, and I'm truly glad to see all of you, those who've been a part of this group since its formation, and those joining us for the very first time. This council was created with a simple but ambitious purpose to look ahead beyond the day-to-day technology challenges to the trends, tools, and shifts that will define how local governments operate in the years ahead. We're not just tracking technology, we're asking what it means for how we govern, how we serve residents, and how we work together across this rapidly growing region and beyond. Across North Central Texas and really across the country, cities and counties are being asked to do more, faster, and often with fewer resources. Artificial intelligence and data driven tools are becoming part of everyday operations, whether in service requests, or permitting, transportation planning, or citizen engagement. Alongside the excitement, however, there's also caution. We all recognize the need to adopt these technologies responsibly, with transparency, with ethical guardrails, and with a clear focus on outcomes that strengthen public trust. That's why our session today focuses on responsible AI in cities, how we can explore and apply these tools with confidence, and how our organizations can lead the way in shaping their use, not just reacting to it. This conversation is possible because of the relationships that bring us together. Through TechShare, which is the North Central Texas Council of Governments cooperative purchasing program, we're helping cities, counties, and special districts access vetted and competitively bid contracts that make innovation attainable and compliant. TechShare is more than a procurement tool, it's a platform for collaboration, helping governments of all sizes tap into solutions that once felt out of reach. The Alliance for Innovation, or AFI, they connect a national network of forward-thinking local governments that are piloting new ideas, sharing what works, and helping shape the future of public service delivery. AFI has been a long-standing partner in helping our region think boldly and act collaboratively. And finally, Civic Marketplace has built a platform designed specifically for the public sector, where vetted cooperative contracts, vendor solutions, and peer insights meet in one place. Civic Marketplace was co-designed with procurement leaders to simplify discovery, streamline engagement, and ultimately try to connect innovation with implementation. Together, these three organizations, the NCT COG through TechShare, AFI, or the Alliance for Innovation, and Civic Marketplace, form a powerful ecosystem for progress, a way for local governments to not just keep pace with technology, but to shape the direction it takes. To join TechShare, it's free. We have added a link here in the chat that will give you insight into the TechShare process, how to become a member, which is simply signing an interlocal agreement, and then you will have access to all of our contracts. There will be resources for Alliance for Innovation, as well as Civic Marketplace at the end of this webinar. So today's meeting is less about theory and more about practice. You'll hear from thought leaders and practitioners who are already putting responsible AI into action. They'll talk about what's working, what's challenging, and even add some lessons that we can all take home with us. Throughout this session, we invite your participation. This council is, we all work better together. We're just sharing experiences here, and there will be a lot that you can take back to your own city, county, your own organization, and you can hopefully learn from those. And then ideally, you can participate in a future Technology Foresight Council meeting and share your experiences. It's all about learning from each other. So again, we invite your participation, whether it's just sharing your own experiences, asking questions, and we'll have a special time at the end dedicated to those questions, or even highlighting challenges that you faced locally. So the goal today isn't just to listen, it's to exchange ideas, identify actionable steps, and begin shaping the foundation for what comes next. The more we bring diverse voices to this conversation, which can include leaders, city managers, innovation officers, and any other partners, the stronger our regional capacity becomes to move forward together. Now, before I introduce our next speaker, I wanted to share that Melissa Kraft with Frisco was supposed to join us. She's unfortunately having some technical issues and won't be able to, but we'll be working with her to attend a future Technology Foresight Council meeting, and she can share with us more about what the city of Frisco is doing there. And with that, I'm delighted to introduce Nicklas Lundblad, who will help us frame the landscape for responsible AI adoption in cities and how we can balance innovation, ethics, and measurable outcomes as we prepare for what's next. And with that, please take it away, Nicklas.
Thank you so much. And my name is Nicklas Berild Lundblad. I spent the last 18 years at Google in various roles, the last 3 years at a place called Google DeepMind in London, which is the AI heart of Google, where we think a lot about how AI impacts societies, how we can develop responsible AI practices, and what the frontier is for the next wave of AI innovation. And just as John said, I want to frame the discussion and sort of give us a sense of the different parameters within which this discussion happens. So without further ado, I want to just pose to you this particular proposition that cities are really software. One of the things that we have found when we have looked at and researched cities in depth is that they work just as software. They solve problems, they organize thinking, allocate resources, they provide us services, and they work for us in different ways. Now, so far, we have been sort of resorting to implement this software in cement and people and cars and other kinds of things. What we can do with artificial intelligence is that suddenly we have the ability to take the city as software and accelerate it and give it a lot of extra power and make it augmented and amplified in different ways. It's also interesting that if you think about where data is generated, if you think about where data comes from in terms of physical locations, more than 70% of the world's data is actually generated in cities. Cities are the sort of the beating heart of the data sphere. That's where data is generated, and that is where data is put to use for us to learn new things. Cities also host 55% of the world's people, and that's growing really fast. We think it will be between 60 and 70% in the next coming 15 years. And that, of course, will accelerate the generation of data even more. And as we apply artificial intelligence in different ways, we also see how we move from what used to be the sort of digital city into the next paradigm. And I'd like to sort of just highlight a few of those shifts because I think they're instructive and they're interesting. We used to talk about smart infrastructure, that, you know, your bus stop could say when the next bus is coming, or you could have some kind of check of air quality. And that is all well and good. But what we're now building with cheaper sensors, with more abundant technology, is more or less a predictive sensorium. And what I mean by that is that you can provide all kinds of senses to a city. You can give it sight, you can give it all kinds of hearing, you can give it the ability to detect chemicals. And as you do that, as you start to build out the sensor space, you also build out the ability to learn. We used to say that we provide public services online. That's true. Today, we provide adaptive resources because the people who use our public services are not just people anymore. It's artificial agents and different kinds of artificial intelligences. And so we design this infrastructure in order to be able to interact with not just people, but also with artificial actors of different kinds. We have seen a lot of information hit citizens the last couple of decades. It's hard to be a citizen of a city today. If you want to keep up with everything that's happening, it's really difficult. Even if you're engaged, even if you're deeply sort of wed to the idea of the active citizen, it's hard to stay on top of things. That's also changing because now we have the ability with AI to target what you're interested in, to make sure your engagement compounds over time and that you really get the most out of that engagement through intelligent navigating across the city's many points of engagement. And more than anything, we need to go from just collecting data to governing it and building data infrastructure. One of the projects that I think will be most important is to make sure that we make cities readable. And by that, I mean we should collect all the kinds of data that we need in order to read the city so we can also start to understand it and change it. So cities are essentially becoming these sensory, modeled, simulated, collaborative pieces of software. And it's up to us as a collective interested in cities in different ways to figure out how we can do that in a way that's both safe and responsible. Because what we're doing is that we're implementing AI as a kind of urban operating system. All of the things that we used to do, traffic, maintenance, different kinds of democratic processes, decisions, all of that is now done on the sort of layer of artificial intelligence that we're implementing in cities. So if you think about that, about installing these new operating systems, then I think we need to also figure out how can we do so well and responsibly. Responsible AI is like it's a hype term in many ways. You hear everybody say they're responsible, and it's not so hard to understand because who would actually buy irresponsible AI, or who would be interested in the idea of here's reckless AI? Do you want it? It doesn't really work. So the responsible AI is something that you hear a lot of people saying, but we need to fill it with content in order for it to inspire the kind of trust that our citizens deserve to feel. So what I want to sort of suggest is that responsible AI depends on implementing this responsible cycle of development. And there's plenty of things here that you will all be aware of, but it's worth just reminding us of. If we want to build responsible AI, we need these frameworks to be explicit, and we need to share them, and they need to be open so everyone can audit them. First, we need AI impact assessments. So looking at what does it mean to implement AI in this particular context? How should we think about it? What are the consequences? We need to make sure that the data we use is open and that the algorithms are open so you can audit them in different ways. You understand how the algorithmic decisions are made. Even if they're made at the fraction of a second, they should be auditable and you should be able to understand them. We need ethical guidelines for when AI can be applied and when it can't. And we need to make sure that all of these guidelines also are incorporated in our procurement platforms, so we know that the kinds of products we're buying conform to them. We should also make sure that we have citizen dialogues. If things aren't working, we should be the first ones to find out from citizens. There should be lots of touch points where you can explore and understand how AI is affecting the citizen. We can have data trusts. People can donate their data to the cities, and we can make sure that we actually take care of and curate that data really well. Plus, we should share experiences across cities as well. Responsible AI is not something that any sort of one city is responsible for. We should, together in a network, try to build that kind of experience sharing in. I think this notion of embedding governance and responsibility is something that, if done well, will actually also make the AI work much better, because AI is dependent on people using it, and people only use it if they trust it. And that trust is what you ultimately try to build through the practices of responsible AI. If you do it as an afterthought or a band-aid and you just sort of tag responsible AI onto whatever you're doing, that trust is going to go away very quickly. There's an old saying that says, trust arrives on foot but leaves on horseback. And I think that when we have different kinds of failures in using AI, we need to call it out quickly. We need to talk about it, and we need to address it, and we need to acknowledge it, because that will be another important way of creating that trust. This means that instead of talking about we will adopt technology, we should talk about the outcomes we want. We heard this from the introduction and John, and I think it's good just to sort of figure out how do we adjust for this in our mindset. One way to do this is to shift our success metrics from tech adoption to service improvement, from cost savings to trust gains, from the number of sensors we've installed to citizen satisfaction. It's not the digitalization itself that matters. It's the improvements day on day that we can provide that really will sort of make the case for us. Cities don't have to go at it alone. There's a huge network out there that one should connect to. It's universities, of course, for evaluation, researchers, and startups who know a lot about this technology and actually are inventing it as well. You should use public policy or public procurement as a standard lever for standards and new implementations. And through all of this, we should be able to build this urban AI commons with shared principles, open data, and interoperable tools. In a sense, then, if we sort of just take a couple of steps back, cities here can be the laboratories of the possible. We can note that the modern city once actually started as a really radical experiment. This idea of getting everyone together, street lighting, sewers, all of those things were technology ones that was really radical, new, and innovative. And we took the city, it's absorbed them, and we've built the city to give the best possible value out of that radical innovation to citizens. We can do the same with AI. We can do this if we experiment. We can do this if we don't shy away from what seems to be bold or exciting, but sort of embrace that. And we can do it if we're really honest about when we fail. I think those things are really important. The future city is, I think, a learning mechanism, a learning organism. And the faster we learn, the better it is. I wanted to say I'm currently in Munich, which is one of the largest German cities, and I'm a senior fellow of practice here at the Technical University of Munich. I just wanted to say that cities all over the world are thinking about this right now, and they're thinking through how they can become more innovative. And there's a ton of different things to learn from different cities in the world and connect with them. So take the Technical University of Munich. I just want to sort of highlight two different projects that we're involved in. One is that there is a simulation at our Singapore office of the entire city of Singapore for every single mobile urban mobility trace that you can find in the city. The idea is to be able to simulate and play through the city across all urban mobility scenarios. If you can do that, you can also adapt the infrastructure. You can see where all of the bottlenecks are, and you can improve it rapidly. Doing that is a thing that I think can be applied anywhere. So we can learn from that with the city of Singapore. We can take it to any other city, and we can say, okay, we want to apply this kind of simulation to our own. And Munich is also now developing a digital twin in which you'll be able to implement new policies. You can try different kinds of traffic routes. You can look at what happens if you redistrict a specific area to be a shopping area instead of a living area. And all of these things allow you to play the city as it was a simulation or a game. And these are things happening just here in Munich. If you then imagine how much is happening across other cities in the world, you realize that there's like a wealth of information here to tap into as we connect cities more closely together. And I'd like to end on a note where I say that I think cities learning from each other is the way humanity has always developed. We've always organized in cities. Way before there were nations, way before there were anything else, there were cities. It's the oldest form of human organization, the most innovative form of human organization, and the one that we now have the privilege to reinvent again. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Clay Pearson, who is the Director of the Alliance for Innovation, and Tim Rossner, the Mayor of Sherwood, to guide our practical discussion. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nicklas, for that great content. That was amazing. I'd like to move right into our next section. We're going to have Scott Pearson from, I'm going to get this wrong, Scott, but it's Tooele County. Did I get that right?
Tooele County.
Tooele County. Anyway, Scott is the Director of Information Technology for Tooele County. He leads the information technology team there and oversees the delivery of secure and reliable innovative technology systems that empower both the county staff and the residents. Really excited to hear what you're about to talk about. I know my clerk at the City of Sherwood was really interested in what you've accomplished and how you save time and energy from your staff and created a better product for your citizens to interact with. So with that, I'll just let you take it away.
Great, thank you. Let me give you a real quick background of myself in Tooele County. I've been in the IT industry a little over 20 some years in both public and private sector, including tribal casino, banking, and now local county facilities. Tooele County is one of the fastest growing cities in Utah. We are the largest by land. We are about 35 miles west of Salt Lake City, so we're a bedroom community for that. So our staffing is growing, but on top of that, we're looking at ways to enhance our services through the use of tools, primarily AI tools, for the citizens of the county. And how can we do that with the same staff and the resources that we have on hand right now, and still utilize that tax funding in a proper, appropriate way for the citizens and the county? So a couple things. We're looking for efficiency in the tools we choose. And, I've been to quite a few conferences, and there's a range of expectations for AI and what local government are doing. Some aren't implementing it all. Others are going full in, and others are taking a safe approach. And I would say that's us with Tooele County. We are looking at all options. We are looking at what best utilizes tax funds for the citizens of the county. The product that we came out with, and I'm going to talk quite a bit about it on this, is polymorphic. We loved polymorphic because of the adaptability they had for what we needed to do in the county and what they could use, and the efficiency of polymorphic. And I'll get into that in I've got about 8 points I would like to make through this. So again, our goal was efficiency with the staff we had and utilizing taxpayer-funded resources appropriately. The first thing that we came out with is looking at all of our processes, and in doing that, polymorphic was excellent with us, and it opened our eyes to some things. And I'll give a quick example that just transpired in our council meeting last night. We looked at our business licenses. We looked at the process through that, and in going through and developing these for an AI-based application, polymorphic, that would benefit us. The thing we found is that we had what I call process overflow. We had systems in place that had been in place for a long time that delayed our response to these things. And in working with our county clerk, our community development, we went through these processes with polymorphic and built out a system that we're about to launch that reduces the steps, reduces the timeline, reduces the research that our staff has to do and our citizens have to do in putting business licenses in play. And how that does that is once we built that process out and understood what we needed to do, we utilized the AI backend of polymorphic to do some of the research for us. What type of business license is it? Do they just need county approval? Do they need a city approval? Do they need state licenses to do what they're going to do? The back end of AI, polymorphic that is AI-based, would do that automatically for it. We built the process, polymorphic and AI refined it for us. The second thing that I want to talk about, or third thing I want to talk about, is reducing the revenue loss. This goes back to our recorder's office has been amazing at their implementation of polymorphic. I would say 98% of their process are now run through polymorphic and automated. So we do real-time 24/7 recording thanks to our recorder's office and thanks to AI and polymorphic. They built a system that, like I said, runs 24/7, that does automated a lot of those tasks that were manual. I'll give you an example. If we get a records request, one of the loss of our revenue was us putting the manpower into that, producing that record, and then putting that out and having a citizen or someone not show up, not pay it. So we have now used taxpayer dollars to create a process that automates that. When that request comes in, it'll go to the appropriate person, it'll be approved, and then it'll run through our polymorphic processing and AI to collect the funds, to give notification of when that is available. We've taken the manual piece out of getting that. We have a step that was 9 steps manual is now down to 2 or 3 steps manual that our employees have to do. So we've now ensured that we are not losing money, taxpayer-funded money, and we are gaining a better reputation in how we could respond to the requests from our citizens. To me, the design of whatever AI product we used needed to be real world. It needed to be easy to maintain. I work with a small crew in my IT, bigger than some, smaller than others. And I needed to be able to put some power into our department's hands to do this. AI has allowed us to do that. The needs that we had as a small local government and a growing local government was, again, how do we produce more with the same amount of people or less people? How do we respond to citizen requests quicker, more efficiently, and with the correct data? We've done that through the use of AI, the main tool we use, and we do have a couple other tools, but the main tool we use and we've approved is polymorphic. In that process, accountability is a big thing for us. With the use of an AI tool that automates that process, that takes that manual piece out of it, is also the tracking of each step. Once a submission into a process, whether it be a business license, whether it be a records request, whether it be a maps request, is now tracked at every single step. And the user who submitted that can go into their system and look and see where that is in the process. If there's a concern, they can request a update on it, and the backend AI will give them that update based on the information it has. It can also say, I don't have that information. I'm going to give you a live person and you can discuss that with them. So that efficiency and that accountability for us and transparency for the citizens has been an amazing thing that AI has allowed us to do. Early lessons that we learned is like everyone, we had staff that would go to conferences and hear AI this, AI that. We had to take a step back as a county and look at everything we were doing. We had to look at the processes one by one. We had to bring in the process we thought would best fit to give us a test sample and see how it worked. I will say that Polymorphic was amazing at bringing that in for us. Their AI structure on the back end that simplifies this has made implementation of an AI product in a local county with limited resources very reasonable and has been a positive impact for how we will roll out other AI products in the future. We have built trust doing that and taking our time with it. So measurable results. Go back to our county recorders. They do a great job of recording the measurable results, and I believe the last number was our efficiency has gained about 45% in their area for our records requests and returns for them, and our recording functions on that system. So we have been able to, through the dashboards in Polymorphic and our own tracking, been able to determine that we are making great and substantial reduction in citizen wait time, improvements in our efficiency, just through the implementation of AI. As we look ahead for what we want to do with AI, we are working on our next step, and in this next year, our goal is to produce the majority of our processes into an AI format, and a majority of them will go into Polymorphic. The next step for us from a polymorphic typed in web-based process is voice-based processing. We are looking forward to enhancing that to where our citizens can have a natural language conversation with a system, an AI-based system, and get their responses and take that typing, that web development side of it, where we have to go onto a website and do it, out of that. We can give them real-time responses. We can give them real-time answers. And if we can't, we can forward them to a live person. But again, that improves our efficiency. That improves our ability for our workers here at the county who are amazing to do their jobs, to respond when needed, and let those tasks that they might not necessarily need to do on a regular basis be handled by the AI backend and products that we choose to use. So we're looking very positively in where AI is going to impact us and where it is going to take our customer service, our citizen service, and our efficiency within the county with the current staff we have and with minimal interruption or improved response to those citizens. If anyone would like further discussions after the questions or anything like that, would like to talk to me about specifically Polymorphic, I'm always available to do that. They have been a great team for us. I want to end with this, and there's a lot of use of the AI buzzword out there. We were very careful in what we selected. We were very detailed in our research and our use of AI. We only allow a few tools in the county. AI by default is disabled. We allow what we want to use. Our county recorder, our county clerk, our assessors have been a great help in building these processes because as IT, I understand them, but I don't understand the in-depth. And so to me, when you build out these processes, you have to collaborate with the departments. They have to be a part of it, and they have to have their input listened to and given. This is not just an IT throwing out another tool. This is a collaboration to build a custom, citizen-centric system that improves efficiency through the county and utilizes tax dollars appropriately. With that, I will turn that over. And like I said, I'm always available for questions, even in after today's view we're doing.
Thanks, Scott. So if I could, as a former city manager myself, you talked about a lot of the upsides and the joys after you got into it. I have to ask, I like Tim, I've got a fascination and horror with change management.
Yes.
How did you go about that at your location, and warming up the people part of it before you did the technology part of it?
Yeah, we still deal with that today. That is every product that we push out. We have that, and what we did is we worked with departments that we felt had easy process to implement, that we could get success from, and that could champion the product. Our recorders were a major part of that. We met with the recorders. We talked about what we wanted to do, how we wanted to implement it. Jerry Houghton, our recorder, was on board. He jumped in with us. He worked on it. And we found people, and Jerry was one of them, that would give us true, honest feedback on what we were doing right and what we were doing wrong. Through that, we built him as a champion, we as a champion, and then we discussed, we didn't force, we discussed what we wanted to do with every department. Change is hard. Change is hard when you do things a certain way for a long time. And I understand that. And so it was a slow, methodical process. And I know some people aren't going to want to hear that, but it's the best way we found to do it. And we built trust with those departments, and we got departments to champion it for us. So it wasn't IT saying, here's a tool you have to use. It was elected officials, other department heads saying, no, this is a tool we love to use and we want to move forward with.
Great. I as a mayor for a urban edge city in Portland metro area, I get a lot of questions from my community when it comes to AI. I have a Gen Z son who tells me all the time that how AI hallucinates and you can't trust it. And I'm just curious, when you have constituents coming in to do a public records request, how are you addressing that? How are you creating transparency? How are you easing those fears that the results they get back are going to be complete and accurate?
A great question. And that's something we look at every AI tool we use. And it's a big discussion we had with Polymorphic. How do you pull the data? Polymorphic One of the reasons we chose them is we give them the information we want to scrape to build our AI. It is not random. It is not public. It is what we tell them. So let me give you an example going back to business licenses. Business licenses may require some sort of state license that we necessarily do not provide here. One of the steps and one of the things AI does is it goes to the sites that we tell it to build from that are state appropriate for that step. And that's that planning process. For me, AI is just not a set and forget type of thing. There is still a planning process in what we do. And so we chose a tool that we could control where it built its models from, where it designed from, what it scraped. And that's one of the things we promote is that, no, this is not a overall public system. This is something that we tell it where it needs to go. So if you're asking it, I need to do this business license, and it responds to you, you have to have this state license first. We want people to be rest assured that we have told the system how to build the model. It's not getting information from anything other than what we've told it to scrape, and that's how we pull it in. So that is a discussion we have had to have a couple times, and that's kind of our focus on how we reassure it. Now, with that said, the state of Utah is going into putting out some legislation on data privacy, where we will, we've already started to put that onto our websites, what we do and how we do it with AI and with other information we collect. So we will make it readily available for people that want to read it, but we will also have that discussion with them.
So for everybody joining us today, if you'd like to ask any questions, please put those in the chat and we'll pose that for either Scott or Nicklas. Scott, two questions, and you could pick which one you want to answer. How do you feel? Nicklas talked about cities as software. How do you feel about being considered software? And my other question would be, you were in the private sector before you joined the county. How do you bring about that sort of business mindset to the public sector employees that may not come to it with that same abilities or mindset? So,
yep, I can answer both of them for you. So I agree. Cities, counties are a software. We are here to support, as software would, the citizens of the county. That is our primary goal. From an IT perspective, I am here to secure, maintain, and be a great steward of the data and the services we provide. That's my job as IT. So I completely agree with that. And that is how we function. We are no different than opening up an application and requesting information. We're no different than going to Google and doing a search. People come to the county for answers and services. So that is what we do, and that is why I completely agree with that statement that Nicklas made.
As for the business mindset, yeah.
Business mindset, it's a difficult mindset, and we are a structure that is county manager elected. We do not have commissioners, so we have a county council. We have elected officials and the clerks and the recorders and the treasurer and auditor and assessors, and then we have the staff that reports to the county manager, which I fall under. I would say at first it is difficult. I've been here just about 4 years. Building the trust with the electeds, I am not perfect at it by any means, but building that trust makes the interactions easier and bringing that business side of it. I don't look at it from a political side. I look at it from a computer service side. My job, and this is no different in the business field, is to provide the services to my customers, who are the citizens and the employees of the county. Sometimes that's not always favorable, because the biggest thing we look at is the cybersecurity side right now and how we implement that, and how we use AI to implement that. So as we move forward, AI becomes a bigger piece of that. Our information security administrator spends a lot of time monitoring that, because like we said, AI can produce incorrect results sometimes. especially on that side where we're global. On our polymorphic side, not, because we choose where it's going to scrape. But on that global security side, he spends a lot of time with that and learning how to use that. We're taking a much slower approach on that. But to me, it's building the trust. And once you build the trust and let them know that my job here is to support them and provide the services, the secure services that they need as our customers, so the county employees need as our customers. Once you start building that, and it does take some time, I don't think that transitions is bad. We function in IT about the same as I would in a private sector. The big difference is I function with taxpayer money. I want to utilize that money correctly on behalf of the citizens.
Great. So we have a question from the gallery, for lack of a better term. But it's a great question in terms of personal identifiable information and police department. Like I can think of examples like body worn camera footage and stuff like that. So as you're processing these public record requests and this AI environment, how are you handling that and making sure you're not inadvertently releasing information, like say it's part of an investigation or something like that, before it's publicly available?
Right. So we are just starting with the police and sheriff's department. In fact, we had a meeting last week to bring all of us together. Our police departments in our cities here, for the most part, have local connections to us, direct connections, fiber connections that we maintain for them. But we got some calls from our sheriff's department, our police department, saying, hey, we're starting to look at a bunch of tools. They were separate tools. Some were AI-based, some were not. We brought them in as an IT department and said, let's sit together, let's discuss this, let's do this as a combined group to put the best product out there for our citizens, because the cities have the same thing that we do. We do private AI models. We do not share them, especially in that area. So everything we're looking at is a private model that is in either our own tenant that we have the ability to secure and maintain. And we also have data retention schedules that we will produce. And that's actually one of the data privacy things that are coming down from the state is notifying people of that. So those are our private models and private AI that we will only do for our police and PII information. If it is stored in the cloud, we make sure that it's our own tenant that we control the security over.
Great answer. Thank you. I was going to kick over to you, Clay.
So with that, I'd like to go back to Nicklas. Maybe any reactions to what Scott shared, and then overall, any your closing.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think, it's been brilliant to hear Scott talk about this, not least because it's like in practice that we really learn how to use AI. And I think there's several points that I wrote down as I was listening to Scott. I thought were very good. The overarching idea of being a careful steward of taxpayer money, I think, is a really important one. And implementing AI for the sake of AI is not that. And so that's why I think one of the things that Scott said at the very outset of his presentation that I think is worth highlighting is this notion that he started with processes. He didn't start to look at the technology or the software and ask, what can this thing do and what are the capabilities of this? He asked, what are the processes we have? How can we map those out? And specifically, what are the kinds of processes that lend themselves to become a pilot before we go on, before we do more advanced things, before we do natural voice, language recognition, those kinds of things. There's a ton of wisdom in that. To start with, the problem you want to solve, the decision you want to inform, the process you want to improve. I think that's extraordinarily important. On top of that, the emphasis that Scott had on transparent accountability, all along the way in those processes, you're able to audit and account for what is happening, also allows you to build trust, which we talked about at the outset, something that is so incredibly important. I was also really impressed, Scott, with the focus you have on measurable result, the sort of 40% that you can measure. I think a lot of people could win a lot of internal kudos if they really looked at trying to measure the kinds of efficiency that they were creating. And I speak now from a very European standpoint, where we do that too. We don't do that well, I'm afraid. And I think it's such an important point to just bring that with us. And I think it's also a very you spoke about being citizen-centric. I also think it's citizen-centric to do that, because that efficiency is efficiency in time, the time that you can give back to citizens, and it's also resources and taxpayer money, as you pointed out. And there's one other thing before I sort of just lean into the closing that I think is worth highlighting from Scott's presentation. That was a lot of stuff, but one thing that I liked was that you stressed that it was a kind of slow implementation. And there is this saying that some of my friends in the military has, that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I think there's something here about the implementation that you don't have to rush it just because everybody is writing AI everywhere, or you read it in all of the headlines. If you go slow, you go smooth, you learn, that's actually going to be fast down the road, because that's the way you can implement things that last and that you don't have to redo again and again. So thank you, Scott. I think it was excellent to have that insight and the understanding of the project. And there's gold in practice, just understanding how people do this in practice. So very grateful for your presentation. I think you gave us a lot there. And in terms of overall sort of conclusions, I think the other thing, the reason we're gathered here today, is that learning is key. We want to learn as much as we possibly can, as fast as we possibly can, because that is the way that we can improve service for our citizens. And so maybe one thing that we can all take on board, one thing we can do is to say, okay, when we have our next convening in January, when we meet for the next Technology Foresight Council, maybe we all have done some kind of experiment, some kind of mapping of process, something that allows us to take this one step further. If we can make that commitment together and then share it with each other, then I think we can all learn a little bit faster together. And I think that could be really, really helpful. So with that, I am essentially going to thank all of our speakers, everyone who joined us, and let's continue to shape the future of AI in cities responsibly together, and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, as it may be if you're in Europe. So thanks so much, and I very much appreciate it.